Hi, and welcome back to another episode of The Mortgage Musketeer, where today we're going to be talking about getting divorced. Okay, now this is a very important subject and a lot of people do it incredibly wrong, and that is why I'm going to take the time to break down 3 very important things you need to know if you are about to get divorced. Now, I'm a divorce mortgage specialist. I have a designation called the RCS-D, which is the Real Estate Collaboration Specialist Divorce. All right, so I've actually gone through this and become specialized in this area. So I'm going to cover 3 important things that you need to know right off the bat before you get divorced, when things are just starting out. First of all, number 1, a court order does not supersede a prior written contract. All right, I'm going to elaborate on all these 3 points. The second thing is the only way out of a mortgage is to refinance or to sell. And number 3, just because a judge says something or agrees to something or arbitrates a divorce does not mean it's possible. Very important. I'm going to explain that. All right, so let's start off with the very first thing, that a court order does not supersede a prior written contract. So what we end up seeing all the time, and I get people who are getting divorced and they're ecstatic, their divorce is almost finalized and they're ready to go and they're ready to buy a home, but they never actually had a consultation with a licensed mortgage loan officer in order to understand what they can and cannot do. At the very beginning of the divorce, it is critical, if there is a home involved that has a mortgage, that both spouses consult with a loan officer, because you need to understand what you can and cannot do. All right? So, and also, when I pull credit, I see all the time where there's a car in both names, or there's all kinds of finances in both people's names. Now understand that once the divorce is finalized and you have that divorce decree and it says that they're responsible for this and they're responsible for that and you guys are happy because you divided everything, that doesn't mean that you're not still responsible for that. So although you're divorced, you're still financially tied together. So it is important to know what is on your credit and understand what is joint, and you have to get them separated. Okay? Do it up front at the very beginning. Because what I see all the time is people go through a divorce and they've already destroyed their credit because they use it as a weapon or wherever the case, right? But understand that if you have a car loan in both of your name and the judge says that somebody else has to take care of it, it's still yours. Because that contract that you got with that, the loan servicer, wherever you got your car loan, that is supersedes any divorce because that was a contract agreed upon by both of you. And that's not contingent upon marriage. So even though you're getting divorced and somebody else may be quote unquote responsible for it legally, it doesn't mean that they're not going to not make a payment, and it goes in your debt to income ratio. So you have to get that separated. They have to refinance it. The only way to get out of that loan is to have them refinance it. Same thing with credit cards. You have to understand what's going on with your credit cards. Okay, if you guys have a joint credit card, you need to get off of it. All right? You need to have separate credit. You need to separate all that stuff, because if you're divorced and you go through issues, and this is another thing, is do not use divorce as a weapon. Don't think that bankruptcy is the way to get out of it, and that can happen. So if you're divorced and one person is struggling financially, they may go into bankruptcy, and you know what? Because you have joint credit, they're pulling you down with them. Incredibly important that when you're beginning to get a divorce, you have a consultation with somebody like me who has a specialization, a designation as a divorce mortgage specialist. That way, we can take a look at what's going on in the credit and figure out what's going on and how we need to split your assets legally so that when you actually do complete the divorce, you are legally separated and financially separate. Very important. Number 2, the only way out of a mortgage is to refinance or sell. I see it all the time where somebody's trying to buy a home, they got all their stuff together, and they're like, yep, I'm ready to buy a home, and I pull credit, and they still have a mortgage, and they say, well, in the divorce, she was responsible for it. And I see this even a year or 2 afterwards. Oh yeah, she had a year to take care of it, right? Or he had a year to refinance. Just because lawyers and judges don't understand the mortgage side. They're not loan specialists. They're just breaking up the law, and they say, yes, verily, yea, you have to do this, okay? And you all may agree, yay, she's gonna get the house or he's gonna get the house and they'll refinance within 1 year. It doesn't mean that they can, all right? It doesn't mean that they have the financial ability to actually refinance the home. So you need to know that up front, because if that person, if the other spouse does not have the ability to refinance that home in their name, it will always be in the other spouse's name as well. You won't separate those, because understand that the deed or mortgage is the ownership and the mortgage loan is the financing. And that financing, that loan, and that ownership are two separate things. So even if you did a quitclaim deed and gave ownership to the other spouse, you still have a mortgage loan. And the only way out of that mortgage loan is to refinance or to sell. So at the beginning, when you're starting to think about divorce, you need to do that consultation with a divorce mortgage specialist so you can see, can they refinance? Because if they can't, if it is not viable, the only option is to sell. And that becomes emotional, right? But we need to get the emotions out of it and understand the law and their buying power and what they can do. And if they can't refinance it, you're going to have that debt for the remainder of the loan. And oftentimes it's 25 to 30 years. That's how it works. So know that up front so that you can say, whoa, she doesn't qualify. I know this is your dream home, but either you need to get somebody else to co-sign with you to refinance that loan, or we need to sell this home. That needs to be up front in the arbitration with the lawyers when you're figuring out who is going to be doing what, okay? Very important. Number 3, just because a judge says that, hey, you have to do this, doesn't mean that they can. And this goes back to number 2, all right? So just because, and I see it all the time, well, the judge said that they are responsible for it. Okay, yes, they are, legally, but it goes back to 1 and 2. Just because the judge says that they're responsible for it doesn't mean that it magically goes away. Yeah, maybe they're paying for it, but it is still in your name. All right? So understand that it's separate. They don't know the mortgage laws. They don't know what the responsibilities are. Same thing with car loans and everything else. Just because everybody agreed to it doesn't mean that it really matters. And that sounds really, you're like, how is that possible? And it goes back to number 1, that court order does not supersede a written contract. And number 2, the only way to get out of these things is to get a new loan in somebody else's name. Because if you co-sign for something, or if you're a co-borrower, their debt is now your debt, and there's no way out unless you refinance or sell. All right? 3 incredibly important things to remember at the very beginning of the divorce process. All right, there's so much more to this, but those are the things that I wanted to hammer home so that people can say, whoa, hey, I need to get a consultation from a divorce mortgage specialist, real estate collaborative specialist, divorced, RCS-D, that is my designation. If you live in any of the states below, I'm happy to help. But understand that this is incredibly important to do at the beginning, not at the end, because even though you may be divorced, if you don't get this stuff settled up front, you will never be financially separated unless those things are taken care of. All right? I hope this helps. If you have any questions, leave comments below. I answer all of the questions. And until next time, it's all for one and one for all.